They built the greatest civilization the world had ever seen. They aligned pyramids to stars. They mapped the human body. They wrote philosophy before Greece had cities. And for over 200 years, the world tried to convince you they weren't African. This is the truth they didn't put in your textbooks. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Let's go back. North Africa, 3100 BCE. A civilization is rising along the banks of the Nile. We call it ancient Egypt. They called it Kemet, the Black Land. Not because of soil alone, because of its people. For thousands of years, nobody debated where Egypt was. It was in Africa. Its rulers were African. Its gods, its culture, its genius, all rooted in the African continent. Then something changed. Not in history, in the telling of history. In the 18th and 19th centuries, European scholars arrived in Egypt. They saw the pyramids. They saw the temples. They saw artwork of extraordinary sophistication. And they had a problem, because what they were looking at didn't fit the story they wanted to tell. That Africa was primitive. That Africa had no history. That Africa needed to be civilized. So they made a choice. They began separating Egypt from Africa, calling it Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, Afroasiatic, drawing imaginary borders with their pens to cut a continent's greatest achievement from the continent itself. But the evidence never went away. Look at the ancient Egyptian art itself. The people painted on temple walls, brown skin, full features, braided hair. Look at the mummies. Forensic analysis of hair samples from royal mummies, including Ramesses II, showed melanin-rich, tightly coiled structures, consistent with sub-Saharan African ancestry. And the Sphinx. Geologists at Boston University found evidence that water erosion on the Sphinx suggested is far older than officially dated, possibly predating Egypt's dynastic period entirely. Somebody built it. Somebody African built it. And if you still have doubts, go south. Just below Egypt lies Nubia, modern-day Sudan, a civilization called Kush. Around 744 BCE, the Kushite king Pi marched north and conquered the whole of Egypt. He didn't come as a foreigner. He came as a restorer. The Kushites saw themselves as the true heirs of Egyptian civilization because they were connected to its roots. And for nearly 100 years, a dynasty of black African kings ruled over Egypt as pharaohs. The 25th dynasty, Pharaoh Taharka, mentioned in the Bible, carved into temple walls across Egypt and Sudan. One of the most powerful rulers in the ancient world. African, unambiguously, completely. There were people who tried to correct the record. Cheikh Anta Diop, a Senegalese scholar, physicist, and historian, spent decades proving, scientifically, that ancient Egyptians were black Africans. He used linguistic analysis, melanin testing on mummies, cultural comparisons with other African civilizations. The academic establishment dismissed him, ridiculed him, refused to engage. But his work endured. And in 1974, UNESCO finally held a symposium, gathering scholars from across the world to debate the origins of ancient Egypt. Diop stood in that room and presented his evidence. Many of his conclusions were validated. The world just never told you. Here is the thing about stolen history. It doesn't just take away the past. It takes away the mirror. When children grow up and see ancient Egypt, the pyramids, the mathematics, the philosophy, the medicine, and they're told, that wasn't yours. It doesn't just distort history. It distorts identity. But here's what they can't erase. The Nile still runs south to north, from the African interior to the sea. Kemet's oldest gods trace back to Nubia. The oldest universities in the world were African. In Egypt, in Mali, in Ethiopia, the roots were always there. The roots were always African. Cheikh Anta Diop said it best. Africa is not a continent without history. It is a continent whose history was hidden on purpose. You were never taught this in school. Because this kind of history, the kind that restores dignity, that reconnects people to their greatness, is inconvenient for systems built on the lie. But knowledge is power. And now you have it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Follow for more history they never taught you. Because this is just the beginning.